Hi everyone, this is Mr Neel Raithatha, also known as the Wax Whisperer. Thank you for joining me in my latest video. We have here a patient who attended with bilateral, fully occluding soft earwax, and we're commencing with this, their left ear. You may have noticed that this patient's ear canal entrance is very narrow indeed. It's somewhat collapsed, and in order for me to gain access within the ear, I'm having to pull their pinner backwards and upwards, so we're retracting it back and up. So the pinner is the cartilage that we find on either side of our heads. So it looks like the satellite dish. It's the part of the ear that's responsible to capture sound waves and to channel and funnel it through into the ear canal towards the eardrum. And the cartilage of the outer third of the ear canal, so the lateral third, the cartilaginous portion, is an extension of the cartilage that forms the pinner. Therefore, by retracting the pinner, and manipulating it, we can then try and stretch and straighten the ear canal. So once I've stretched the patient's ear canal to keep it open, I'm then using the side of the endoscope, the tip and the side of the tip, to just almost like a doorstop, which then allows me to not only visualize the earwax, but then to enter the ear with the sucker to remove this earwax. And we're just performing microsuction. You can see this plug, it's quite impacted, it's fully occluding, there's some dead skin that's just enveloped the plug of wax, and there's a few hairs in there as well. So all of these things can just make the procedure a bit more difficult. As you're watching this, I should make you aware, I've added a disclaimer to the videos. Currently it's in the description, and I'm just trying to think of the best way forwards of making this available. It might just be that I put a link in. The reason for the disclaimer, it's not a bad thing actually, I think it's something I should have done before, but we had a bit of an incident yesterday on a professional platform where I was wrongly accused of saying something by a very senior otologist actually. So and there's what I did say, which perhaps could have been a bit clearer in the context of what I was attempting to address, and I did acknowledge that, but in no way what I did say could have been misconstrued by this individual as saying something that I clearly didn't. And the irony is that this particular individual actually themselves made a statement that did imply and it can be misconstrued as being misinformation. And so I was getting accused of a crime that I didn't commit, but the individual themselves did commit, and they were being a bit, should I say, they weren't mincing their words. They were quite abrupt. At this stage, they weren't aware of their own error, and I to try to avoid any conflict. But later, privately, after the gentleman withdrew their comments on my post, I made them aware of what they actually said, and what they said was actually very easily could be misconstrued as giving clinical misinformation, whereas what I said, it simply couldn't. So I was essentially being misquoted, and which wasn't a nice feeling. And the person did eventually apologise for their wrongdoing, but it took a lot of conversation in private for them to get to that stage. And again, it's put me on edge, if I'm honest. I'm doing these videos slightly now because they also, during this, probably as a distraction technique to, obviously when I pulled them up on what they actually said, and what they said was actually what they were accusing me of saying, which I didn't. It was very clear that they're going through all my videos and picking up on points, very, very silly points, if I'm honest. So yeah, it just goes to show it's not only the viewers that I've got to be careful of now, it's also fellow professionals. So anyway, in any case, I've decided to put a disclaimer up. It's in the description. As I said, I will try and present it maybe in a different way, but please do have a read of that. So we're just on their right ear. So enough of that, let's move on. This is their right ear. Similarly, it's very soft matted earwax. You can see those hair strands there that's embedded into the wax, and I'm just trying to loosen it posteriorly. This ear canal wasn't as narrow. Not to say that it wasn't narrow, but it was less so. And just put some drops in there just to change the consistency. When you've got hairs like this, matted wax, it can make it a bit more tricky to remove and get a suction grip. Now, the hairs on our ears should really only be formed on the outer third, the cartilaginous portion, and that's where the skin is a lot thicker, and you've got your epithelial layers, your epidermis layer of skin cells, then your dermis, where the hair follicles are located, and then you've got your subcutaneous layer. Whereas the skin that lines the inner 2/3, the bony part of the ear canal, it's a very thin layer of skin, and it's only the epidermis layer, the outer layer, the epithelial layer. So you shouldn't really have any hair follicles forming and developing in the inner 2/3 of the ear canal. So whenever you see hairs that are deep in the ear, you got to ask yourself, why are they there? And there can be several reasons. These hairs could just become loose in the ear, and over time just go deeper into the ear. More likely is that they've been trimmed, and these hairs are, so especially, I mean, myself as well included, sometimes we trim the hairs around our ears, and they could fly in the ear. So a good tip is just to place some cotton wool, not in your ear, just at the entrance. So if you do trim your ear hairs, they're not flying into the ear. And of course, sometimes people do that and also then poke in your ears. When you poke in your ears with cotton buds, it can cause the matting of earwax. So just if you can, just try and avoid the hairs entering your ear. It makes it a bit more tricky for me to remove as well, or the specialist that you see. Maybe you've got some perspective there how narrow this ear canal is. So we're using a standard Zollner suction probe here, and it is taking up much of the inside of the ear. Just working on the edge. Occasionally the screen does get a bit blurry, and that's because we have put a lot of oil in. Because this ear is quite narrow and there's loads of hairs at the entrance, these hairs the oil on the hairs can smear the tip of the endoscope. And previously, what I used to do is instill oil into the ear, let it soak for a few minutes, and then get the patient to tilt the head in the opposite way so we can drain it. But more and more, I'm finding it more effective of suctioning whilst the oil's in the ear. So, but then you've got an increased risk of blurring. So in that last clip, I was just suctioning some of the excess oil, and now that we've got a better view, so it is a bit blurry still, but you can see we've got good view there. We can now bring this away, and this is lodged, and when I remove this, you'll see how narrow this patient's ear canal is. So I'm just coming away there because it did get slightly blurry, so just coming back out. You can see this wax and skin, it's also lining the posterior superior canal wall. So the ear is still slightly submerged in oil. And I've just got a good suction grip here, and it's just now coming away. Then it's a case of just getting it out of the ear. So it's tricky because of the ear anatomy and the consistency. Very narrow ear canal. You can see how it really narrows. The eardrum is intact, slightly vascular, slightly red there, and that's because the wax is impacted against it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Take care, keep well, and speak soon. Bye.